Enroll now at Australia's Sydney Met and win a scholarship of up to $15,000. Apply today.
Tonight on First at 9, this Monday, the 8th of April 2024. SLFP turmoil. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party selects senior vice chair of the party Nima Siripala De Silva as acting chairman following leadership upheaval. Current reforms. Cabinet approves the electricity reforms bill to be presented to Parliament by the end of this month. The Umaoa project. President Ranil Wickremesinghe orders the immediate open of the Umaoa MultiPurpose development project. And forex inflows. Sri Lanka foreign worker remittances exceeds $1.53 billion for the first 3 months of this year.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9 with Umaoa and Mahesh Johnny. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very good evening, everyone. Welcome to First at 9 on this Monday night. Good to have you with us. Appreciate your company. A very good evening in Devari. As always, she's busy.
Oh, very good evening and a warm welcome. Good evening to all of you. I'm just going through actually the misinformation about the eclipse, the April 8th, that is today's eclipse.
It's actually occurring as we speak.
Yes.
But in the United States, if you were expecting an eclipse, a solar eclipse in Sri Lanka, well,
yes,
it's nighttime.
Yes, that's all misinformation. But yes, it's interesting to hear of all these phenomena from elsewhere or whether
there are lots of taboo things attached with the eclipse, isn't it? I've seen on social media and especially on YouTube where lots of people were talking about astrology and how this eclipse is going to impact a lot of people and well, your star sign, if you actually have to look at it, maybe there are some good things happening too, hopefully in Devari.
Let's hope for the best, especially here in Sri Lanka. It is said that 2 lunar eclipses and 2 solar eclipses are expected this year, but Sri Lanka cannot experience any of these.
It's like in movies when aliens comes, they only go visit the United States.
not small islands in Sri Lanka.
So something like that.
We have some interesting news tonight, especially in the political front with the change of leadership in
SLFP.
And we have the SJB and the United National Party talking about the party's ideological battle here. Going forward, I think we will also be able to talk about workers' remittances.
It's a positive thing. Indeed, with regard to the SLFP, there's a lot of drama occurring. The former president, Chandrika Bandana Kumaratunga, she's back. Where is former president Maithripala Sirisena? No, I don't know where he is, but let's begin the bulletin that we have for you tonight. Well, Sri Lanka plans to introduce over 30 distinct social security initiatives nationwide with a focus on transparency and accountability.
Presidential Director General of Community Affairs Ranjit Kirti Tennakoon stated that the cumulative expenditure of the government of Sri Lanka on social welfare initiatives during year 2023 totaled an approximate value of 189,651 million rupees.
Tennakoon further stated that the government's total outlay for social safety measures in 2023 adds up to around 200 billion rupees.
Making a special statement to the media today, Presidential Director General on Community Affairs Ranjit Keertithenakone stated that a substantial sum of 184,098 million rupees was deemed necessary for various aids, loans and allowances under the Samruddhi program for 2023. He further said that the government's total expenditure on social welfare initiatives in 2023, inclusive of appeals and outstanding payments, amounts to approximately 189,650 million rupees. Considering the sum of funds allocated for Samruddhi loans, Thenakone went on to state that the government's total outlay for social safety measures in 2023 adds up to around 200 billion rupees. He also stated that the government has initiated nutritional schemes for school children, support initiatives for expectant mothers, and distributed 20 kilograms of rice free of charge each to impoverished families. In a separate initiative, as part of the government's commitment to eradicating corruption, mismanagement and bureaucracy, while establishing a foundational social security framework, plans are underway to introduce over 30 distinct social security initiatives nationwide with a focus on transparency and accountability.
New Dulux Pentolite Hygiene Plus. Refreshing walls for generations.
Dulux. Well, Labour and Foreign Employment Minister Manusha Nanayakkara says that expatriate workers had remitted $572.4 million to the country in just in March alone, and have cumulatively remitted $1.53 billion to the country in the first quarter of this year. Now, in a statement issued by the Government Information Department, Minister Nanayakkara said that the remittances for the first 3 years had increased by 8.7% from a year earlier. Now, the statement further said that since of May 2022, expatriate workers have remitted $10.2 billion to the country, with many incentives being awarded for expat workers to legally transfer foreign remittances through the banking system.
Sri Lanka's Cabinet of Ministers granted approval to the Electricity Sector Reforms Bill at today's Cabinet meeting. Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara said approval was granted to gazette the amended version of the new Electricity Sector Bill and to present it to Parliament for approval. Kanchana Wijesekara added that the bill will be gazetted this week to be presented to Parliament during the last week of April. Accordingly, the public will have 2 weeks from the day it's presented to Parliament to challenge the bill.
Well, in other local news, we have for you tonight, Minister of Irrigation and Wildlife and Forest Resource Conservation, Pavitra Waniarachi, stated that President Ranil Wickremesinghe had issued directives to declare the Umaoa Multipurpose Development Project open by mid of this month.
The multi-purpose project is expected to add a capacity of 120 megawatts to the national power grid.
A discussion pertaining to the progress of the Umaoa Multipurpose Development Project was held at the Ministry of Irrigation recently. During the meeting, Minister of Irrigation and Wildlife and Forest Resources Conservation, Pavitra Waniarachi, stated that President Ranil Wickremesinghe had issued directives to declare open the Umaoa project by mid-April. The project is expected to add a capacity of 120 megawatts to the national power grid. The project commenced in 2011 and the estimated value of the project stands at $513 million. Sri Lanka is yet to receive funding for the project through the Iranian government following an economic crisis that ironically affected Iran. As the first installment of $50 million had been provided and the construction of the multipurpose project had commenced, the rest of the construction continued based on funding through provisions by the Treasury.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party has appointed the party's senior vice chairman, Minister Nimal Siripal de Silva, as its new acting chairman.
Now, the decision was taken at the Politburo meeting held today at the Sri Lanka Foundation Institute.
During the meeting, it was also decided that former President and Chairman Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga be retained as an advisor and observer to the Sri Lanka Freedom Party.
On the 4th of April, the Colombo District Court issued an interim order preventing former President Maithripala Sirisena from serving as the SLFP chairman. The order was issued following a court case filed by former President and advisor to the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga. The court order issued against Sirisena will be in effect until the 18th of April. To address the ongoing leadership crisis in the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, a meeting was called today by the party's senior vice chairman, Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva, at the Sri Lanka Foundation Institute. The meeting was held under the patronage of the party's advisor, former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga. Former President Maithripala Sirisena, former General Secretary Dayasri Jayasekara and Shan Vijayalal de Silva were not invited to the meeting.
In accordance with the Constitution, we convene the party's senior vice chairman, Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva. There are 11 members registered in the commission, of whom 6 are present at today's meeting. As such, legally, after convening the Politburo meeting, we selected senior vice chairman Nimal Siripala de Silva as the acting chairman. The biggest reason for the weakening of the SLFP in recent times was due to the party chairman's capacity to make decisions independently as allowed for by the party constitution. We have appointed a committee to amend the constitution with the help of a presidential council lawyer, with which we plan to establish democracy and justice within the SLFP. Also, as you know, former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga is the main advisor of the party. However, our former chairman deliberately did not invite her for anything as an advisor to the party. We have decided to retain her as an advisor and an observer on the Politburo. He refused to accept the invitation of the senior vice chairman to participate in the meeting and has also issued a letter alleging that this meeting is illegal. Therefore, a decision was taken at the Politburo meeting for me to assume the responsibilities of the secretary since he has not acted according to the constitution.
When everyone asked me to contest the 2015 presidential election, I refused and gave it to the General Secretary of the party with high hopes. He ended up destroying the country as well as the party. We just corrected that mistake today. We do. If not, we would not have selected him. His permission will not be asked for.
It is clearly stated in the Constitution that there can be no Politburo meeting without the chairman's presence at the meeting. Any meeting that is held without the chairman or the secretary in attendance will be deemed illegal. This is clearly an illegal action.
Who cares what he says anyways? All his work has been rendered illegal now. All the cases he filed have been disqualified. Even the courts don't recognize him.
Meanwhile, the interim injunction order preventing the Sri Lanka Freedom Party's executive committee from removing Duminda Dissanayake, Lasantha Alagiyawanna and Mahinda Amaravira from their respective positions in the party has been extended until April 24. Colombo District Court Judge Sadun Vitana issued this order when a complaint filed by the relevant MPs was taken up for consideration this morning.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe, during a meeting with constituents within the United National Party in Kandy yesterday, claimed that opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, in creating the SJB, sought to destroy the United National Party.
Speaking further at the meeting, he went on to say that currently the Samagi Jana Balawege has been infiltrated by a group of former SLFP members led by Professor G.L. Pires.
A meeting was held at the presidential residence in Kandy yesterday between President Ranil Wickremesinghe and United National Party constituents.
In 2020, the United National Party was the only political party which forecasted a need for $3 billion to survive the economic crisis. However, during this time, the party suffered a fracture because a certain group of members, led by Sajith Premadasa, abandoned the party to form the SJB. My regret is that I was able to prevent this before, when his father tried to do the same but couldn't this time. If the party wasn't fractured, we would have been able to form a government with 85 to 90 seats in parliament. When former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa resigned, he said that they would support anyone who was able to form a government. So, why weren't we able to form a government then? Why are some of our former party members in the opposition? Because the party was fractured. When I became Prime Minister, I asked for their support, but they refused to support me. They claimed at the time that they were the true UNP. But what is the current situation? Some former SLPP members, led by GL Peiris, have infiltrated and taken over the SJB. How can you claim that you are the true UNP when this is the case? All they wanted to do was to destroy the UNP. This is hatred and resentment, nothing more.
The President also took part in the Let's Start With Me Kandy District Youth Conference.
After the economic collapse, people assumed that the country had lost its future. However, due to the government's actions over the past 2 years, we were able to revive the economy back to normal at a quicker than expected pace. In order to fully overcome this situation, we must convert our import-oriented economy into an export-oriented one. For this, we have to access foreign markets. In order to tap into those markets, we must improve our export portfolio and increase tourist arrivals. Sri Lanka does not possess sufficient capital for investments, which means we must bring in foreign investments, construct factories and develop the nation. In order to attract these investors, we have to show them that our economy is strong. Within a few months of an investor's initial bid, they must be informed as to whether their investment will be approved. If so approved, they must be given the clearance to commence their operation within the span of 1 to 2 years. However, Sri Lanka does not currently possess such a system. The first step in this process is to transform the country's education system to face the demands of the future. You ask for a change. That change requires a new economic approach. I will submit the preliminary legislation for process to Parliament in May, and it will be approved by June. I intend to name this legislation the Economic Transformation Act.
Following the conference, the President joined iftar celebrations at the Juma Masjid in Katukale. Addressing the gathering, the President went on to state that a special commission would be established to coordinate the last rites of individuals in accordance with their religious customs or final wishes. Meanwhile, today, the President declared open the newly constructed flyover linking Kompani Vidya, also known as the Slave Island, with Justice Akbar Mawatha and Uttarananda Mawatha. The remaining portions of the project are expected to be completed by September, with the total cost of the project estimated at around 5 billion rupees.
Leader of the Samagi Janabalawege, MP Sajith Premadasa, stated that the change Sri Lanka achieves is simply not the economic model that the country should adopt.
The opposition leader further said that divisive politics predicted on class and ethnicity will not pave the way for sustained development in this country.
Speaking at a convention yesterday, the SJB leader also highlighted that change is crucial in order to move forward and added that it takes a crisis to embrace change.
The Samagi Buddhi Mandapaya of the Samagi Janabalawege held its national convention in Colombo yesterday under the patronage of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa. The convention was attended by the former executive director of the International Monetary Fund for India, Bangladesh, Bhutan and Sri Lanka, Dr. Surjit Balla.
When I entered graduate school in the 1990s, Sri Lanka was presented as a shining example of successful policies on social development, the Human Development Index, etc. Now, 50 years later, it is in the midst of an ongoing economic crisis. I worked in Sri Lanka in the 1980s and most recently as executive director of the IMF. They don't have one leader, but they have many leaders. Not one face, but many faces.
Every political campaign strategy is formulated to manage this vote bank, divided along the lines of caste, class, elitism, and ethnicity. That's why, for my presidential campaign of 2019, I followed the path of Expatriates Forward Together. I very staunchly and sincerely believe that Sri Lanka's sustained progress is only possible when we leave behind our caste, class, elitism and ethnic identities and move forward together as simply Sri Lankans. What we inherited from our colonial past has not served us well. It has in fact destroyed us. A racist, a classist or a communist cannot bring forth the necessary economic and social reforms because of their divisive politics. I am being very forthright when I say all of us must give up something to move forward. We cannot create reforms where one community or class is protected against change. Every man and woman and child will have to change in order to move forward. Crises have acted as springboards. It takes a crisis to embrace change. What I really want us to understand is that the change we achieve is not simply which economic model we adopt. Samagi Jana Balawegaya are not proponents of the extreme right-wing nor the extreme left-wing ideology. We believe in social democracy. We fervently believe that wealth can only be created by capitalism, but such capitalism has to be humane. We sincerely believe in capitalism with a human face.
The case of the supply of substandard medicines was called again today at the Malikakanda Magistrates Court. Former Health Minister Kehelio Rabukwala and the 9 alleged suspects who have been in remand custody for the past 4 months also appeared before the court. The magistrate also ordered the Director General of Health Services to submit a detailed report of the patients that were affected following the administration of the medicine in question to the court before May 30th.
President's Counsel Nalinda Indathissa, who made a submission to the court on behalf of Citizens Power Against Bribery, Corruption and Waste Organisation, an aggrieved party in the case, asked the court to issue an order to investigate a person that died after receiving doses of immunoglobulin injections. He also mentioned that information had been received that 3 patients who had been administered the drug had died at the Colombo National Hospital. Deputy Solicitor General Lakmini Girihagama responded to the request by the President's Counsel and said that it had been informed earlier to the court of the need to obtain a detailed report of patients who died and developed complications after administrating the medicine in question, and added that further action will be taken after receiving the report. After considering the facts, the magistrate ordered the Director General of Health Services to submit a detailed report to the court before the 30th of May. The magistrate then asked the defence lawyers whether they would submit facts for the consideration of bail for the suspects. Sudat Janaka Fernando, the first accused of this case and the mastermind behind the company that supplied the substandard drug, requested for permission to make a statement in the court. Since there was no lawyer to appear for the suspect today, it was allowed. During his confession, he asked the court where the Criminal Investigation Department had such authority to investigate regarding substandard drugs and queried who complained the medicine he supplied to be substandard. He questioned what crime he committed that falls under the Public Property Act. Following his statement, when the magistrate asked him whether the medicine was manufactured in Sri Lanka or not, the suspect refused to give an answer. He also mentioned that answers should be found through an investigation. Deputy Solicitor General Lakmini Girihagama, who responded to the suspect's statement, said that 3 expert reports that were submitted to the court had confirmed the vials that were supplied supposedly containing human immunoglobulin contained solutions containing bacteria, while the anti-cancer antibody called monoclonal, which must be present in the antibody vaccine called rituximab, was not found in the vaccines that were supplied. Later, as special matters were not presented for obtaining bail for the rest of the suspects, all suspects were remanded further until the 22nd of April. Further, since the bail order issued to Additional Secretary of the Ministry of Health Saman Ratnayaka and Dr. Thusita Sudarshana is to be announced next Wednesday, an order that they be remanded was also made.
Now, the suspect related to the Horana double murder was killed in a shootout between the police and Special Task Force personnel in Angamua in Paduka this morning. Now, police stated that the motorcyclist had opened fire first at the police personnel and sustained injuries when the police returned fire. The deceased suspect was an active corporal of the Sri Lanka Air Force at the Ratmalana base. Now, with that, here's a look at more local news in brief.
In Gediaronda, Bandaravela, a man and his wife were arrested with 200 packets of heroin in their possession. The police said that the suspects were planning to sell them during the upcoming New Year season. In Koswatte, 4 people travelling in a car in possession of a hand grenade were arrested. The Koswatte police said that they were arrested based on the information received that the suspects were transporting the hand grenade to resolve a conflict in the area. Last night, a large tree crashed into a moving van in Batalgala, Dikkoya. The 3 passengers who were in the van survived, but the accident ended up causing a 30-minute-long traffic block.
Welcome back. We take you to your stock market update. Sri Lankan shares closed higher today, aided by price gains in financial and consumer staple stocks, while market turnover crossed the 3 billion rupee mark during today's session. The benchmark all-share price index gained 124.53 during the session and closed trading at 11,920 points. LOLC Finance and Cargill's PLC were the top gainers on the index, gaining 3.7% and 6% respectively. Trading volume on the SPI was recorded at 117.4 million shares, rising from 83.2 million in the last session. Turnover rose to 3.20 billion rupees, with the banking sector being the top contributor to the day's turnover. Foreign investors closed as net buyers purchasing stocks worth 277.9 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers offloading shares worth 3.03 billion.
Well, here's Diluksha Dimel from Capital Alliance, who has tonight's look at Market in Review segment for this week.
Last week, the domestic equity market continued its positive trajectory, with the ASPI rising by over 350 points to 11,795. The S&P 20 followed this trend, increasing by over 160 points to settle at 3,481. Additionally, total market turnover for last week grew by 68% to 14.4 billion rupees, starting the quarter on a good note. Moving on to last week's Treasury bill auctions, yields rose by 4 and 7 basis points for the 3 and 6 month instruments, with the 12-month Treasury bill yield remaining unchanged. And on the international front, the Nasdaq decreased 0.8% due to concerns that the Federal Reserve might postpone interest rate cuts, coupled with Tesla shares falling following disappointed quarterly numbers. In commodities, oil prices climbed 4.4% to $90.86, and gold prices increased 4.2%, closing at $2,349.
Welcome back. With some good news, TV Derana reasserted a dominance in Sri Lankan media by becoming the nation's first ever television channel to surpass 5 million subscribers on YouTube.
Now, following its introduction in January of 2012, the TV Derana YouTube channel steadily gained popularity, surpassing 1 million subscribers in 2019. Later, the TV Derana YouTube channel reached 4 million subscribers over the past 5 years.
The channel contains over 28,000 videos of content, which have been collectively viewed over 50 billion times. Well, that's all the news from us here tonight.
Well, we have to wrap it up. I'm Mahesh Johnny.
And I'm Indivari Umaoa. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. Good night.